Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate forearm views. The cassette size would be 14 by 17, and for the A to P forearm, my patient would be placing their forearm up towards the ceiling like this. Or they would be supinated, elbow extended. We would want the line through the humeral epicondyles to be parallel with the image receptor. And then we would want the central ray to be perpendicular to the midpoint of the field. So you can see the radius, the ulna, and the distal humerus, and then also the proximal row of the carpal bones. So that would be for A to P forearm. Okay, so for a lateral forearm, patient is going to be turned sideways so that way their shoulder is parallel to the table with the forearm. Their elbow is going to be flexed to 90 degrees. The hand and wrist rotated so they're actually lateral. You can't see my hand that well, but it's like this, so it's actually lateral. Because actually it's more like this. Sorry, it's more like this, because otherwise it could be, if I pronate it, then it's not truly lateral. We want the line through the humeral epicondyles perpendicular to the film plane, and the central ray to be perpendicular to the middle of the film space. So we can see the radius, the ulna, the distal humerus, and then exactly like the last view, the proximal row of the carpals. So that's forearm. For the elbow, we're going to use a 10 by 12 cassette for two views, or the two views that we're going to do first is going to be A to P elbow. So patient's arm is extended, and they're in supination. We want the elbow to be in the center. So obviously the sweatshirt's not the best thing to wear, but we want their elbow to be in the center of the image receptor. So the line can go to the epicondyles. Central ray would be into the elbow joint, directly into the elbow joint. So you can see the elbow joint and the distal end of the humerus and proximal radius and ulna. So that's going to be for AP elbow. Medial elbow view. So the patient can start with their elbow extended and their arm in supination, but then they're going to want to pronate the hand to create a 45-degree angle within the film plane. So the central ray is still going to go perpendicular through the elbow joint in the middle of the film space, and then we want to see the oblique projection of the distal humerus and the proximal radius and ulna as well. And for all of these views, they're at 40 SID. So that's my medial oblique. My lateral oblique is going to be, my patient is going to be, the elbow is going to be extended, but they're going to need to rotate their arm. So if they can be lower than the table, that's probably a little better for them, because then you're not doing this. My chair actually does not go that low. So you're going to have them still keep the elbow in the center, and then the rotation of the hand and the arm allows for a 40 to 45 degree angle with the field plane. so the central ray can still go perpendicular through the elbow joint in the center of the field. And you can see the radial head, neck, tuberosity, and that is all for that one. So then the lateral elbow, patient is seated sideways again, as it's easier. Their shoulder is going to be relaxed and their elbows bent to 90 degrees. When I say the shoulders relaxed, it's actually, it needs to drop. So it's parallel with the plane of the film and the humerus in the forearm. So it's not like in the way, like here, it's here. Making sure the forearm and the wrist is lateral again. So a little bit, not pronated. And then we want the central ray again. So I actually need to be here. If this was a little bit longer, then I would be able to demonstrate it a little better, but my central ray is perpendicular to the middle of the elbow joint through the center of the film space, and you want to see the distal humerus, proximal forearm, and the olecranon process is the main thing, as well as the fat pads. So special views for the elbow. First, the Jones or acute flexion position. Patient's going to be seated and then they're going to fully flex their elbow here and rest their wrist or their hand, I guess, on their shoulder. Their central ray is actually going to go about 2 inches above their olecranon process. So like about right here, probably, 2 inches. So probably about right here, that's the central ray. So you can see the olecranon process and the soft tissue for that view. The acute flexion position for the ulnar sulcus is patient would need to actually just bring their elbow or their arm down. It's still flexed, but their forearm is resting now down onto the image receptor. So they're like this, like so, and the central ray is still going to be 2 inches above the olecranon process going through that receptor space. It's still perpendicular, so you can see the olecranon process as well as the soft tissue. Okay, and then my last view, Holly view. This is when a patient might not be able to extend their elbow. So at this point, you would have them supinated still, and the elbow would still be in the center of the image receptor, but you would just have something to support their forearm so they don't have to hold it up. And you're still going to have the central ray perpendicular through the elbow, so you can still see the distal humerus and proximal radius and ulna for Holly. And the last one is coil, lateral, and for the radial head. For the coil lateral views, patient is positioned the same for both views. The shoulder is going to be depressed, the elbows at 90 degrees, the patient's seated, and the main thing is the wrist being pronated to P to A. But the biggest thing is that the central ray is going to go for the radial head and capitulum. It's going to come through this way, and for the coronoid process and trochlea, it's going to be coming down this way, if you can tell what I'm doing. So radial head and capitulum is going through from this way, and the lateral view for the coronoid process is going this way. Hopefully that makes sense to you, because it does to me. And that is it for the elbow views. Okay, so for the humerus views, the AP humerus, you can have the patient seated or standing. The SID is going to be at 40 inches, and you want the shoulder to be in the same plane as the elbow. So the arm is going to be extended and the wrist is going to be supinated. You're going to be a little bit the arm's going to be a little bit abducted away. And then the central ray is going to be in the middle of the humerus, okay? You might want to use shield for a female patient, and there's no tube tilt. I think I said 14 by 17 cassette to go through the humerus for AP. So for a lateral, it has the same SID, and patient can also be supine or seated, or upright with the arm well, if they're upright, then the arm will be extended. But you're gonna want the shoulder in the same place as the elbow, or in the same plane as the elbow, but this time you're gonna have the patient internally rotate their arm. So kind of have them put their hand on to the side of their hip, or, you know, their iliac crest is up here. So just up here, so their arm is internally rotated and the central ray is still going to be in the middle of the humerus. Same thing, you might want to have them wear a shield while you're doing this view, making sure that the epicondyles are also perpendicular to the image receptor. And I believe that is it for, hold on a second. This is just an overall disclosure of all the views that I demonstrated in these videos are all going to have 40 SID inches. They are proper gowning procedures, or shields would be required, and obviously we would have the patient not move during these views while we are taking them. No artifacts would need to be seen as well. So just to clarify and make sure that I include that information. Thanks.